So the priests want to condemn Jesus. They look around for witnesses, and to start with, they can't find any whose testimony agrees. And finally, they get these two false witnesses who come up and say, this man says that I will destroy the temple and build it again in 3 days. You notice that actually that is an interesting little matter because their testimony disagrees in just 1/16th note. It's a canonic setting, and the alto has an E flat where the tenor has an E natural. So it's another little thing saying the testimony does not quite agree. So I have two thoughts about the recitative. The accompaniment is very striking. You have the music, it goes and it stops, and it goes and it stops. You have an eighth note of music and an eighth note of rest, and that continues right through the whole thing. And of course he's silent because of these false witnesses. And later on, with this background going on of this music, which happens and doesn't happen, and happens and doesn't happen, always one note on and then one rest, you get a marvellous moment with a beautiful arch-shaped phrase and harmony which goes from an anguished diminished seventh chord through a series of more melodious sounding, harmonious sounding chords, painting God's merciful will bent towards helping us in our suffering. It's a beautiful vocal phrase. The music in the background does paint this change of harmony despite these starting and stopping and starting and stopping. But the overall effect is to show in a quasi-pointillist way that despite all these terrible things happening, that actually God's mercy is with us. The sounds that a gamba bow makes at the very start of a note have very many high harmonics, and they catch the ear. And so though it's not necessarily as loud as a cello, the effect on the ear is very startling. And as you often find with these continuities, lots of figures, so plenty for the keyboard players to improvise on. And against all this, the voice starts completely differently. Geduld. You have to be patient when there's all this terrible stuff going on. He does geduld, geduld, geduld several times, always with smooth lines. And then, wenn mich falsche Zungen stechen, when these horrible, vile people are saying false words at you, and the falsche Zungen, suddenly the line goes crazy, falsche Zungen stechen, and very much faster also. And even there is a trill on a 32nd note, so you must at least be able to do a 64th and preferably a 128th note in order to get a trill in such a... Actually, there is a cheat for that, but you can actually do it by doing some of the trill in the previous 16th, but still it's got to be a sort of bitter, sharp little thing. The final geduld, you wouldn't think that the word patience was going to be set to such a high note, but that is exactly what he does at the end. Geduld, geduld. But it can't just be sweet, it has to be sweetness under an intense pressure to do the opposite and not be patient. So you had all these vile people who are falsely accusing you, and still you have the patience, but only just.